Go live. There we go.
Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta like butter. We're back again. The studio is booked every week for the next 6 months, and we've got a waiting list. And how did that happen? We've been rated now twice in the last 2 years in the top 20 Canadian leadership podcasts. And I got to thank you, because the only reason we're there is because of the great guests that we have coming to the show and your ability to watch it. We're live streaming. That means we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, and one of my favorite feeds now, Rumble. So if you have a chat feature, you'll be able to comment or put a question. I might see it in studio. We'll put it on the screen. And let's have a lot of fun. This will be produced as an international podcast in the future, audio, and a YouTube premiere video as well. So today you're peeking in the studio and you're getting all the bloopers and all the live stuff unscripted. So let's get started. We'll start with what I call the show hook. So stand by. What happens when you do everything right and still end up lonely? Not lonely because you're alone. Lonely in your marriage, sitting across the dinner table from someone you built a life with and feeling like you're on the different planets. Lonely in your fatherhood. You're there for the games, the homework, the bedtime routine, but you can't remember the last time you actually connected with your kid. Not checked a box, but connected. Lonely in your work. You climbed, you achieved, you've got the title, the income, the respect, and you're wondering every morning why you're doing it. Most men won't say this out loud. I didn't for a long time. They can't. They have no one in their lives they can actually tell the truth to. Trevor Stevenson has heard this confession from thousands of men. Successful guys, good fathers, solid husbands on paper, all quietly dying inside because nobody prepared them for this. We raised an entire generation of men with one instruction: succeed by any means. Get educated, build a career, marry well, make money, accumulate status. Check those boxes. And it worked until it didn't. Because somewhere around 40 or 45, something that shifts. You start asking different questions, not how do I get promoted, but why does this feel empty? Not how do I provide more, but what am I actually building here? You realize the conditioning that got you here won't take you where you need to go. Trevor's childhood started with anger and violence and a lack of empathy. Does that sound familiar? Strong women corrected his path. A decade of world travel forced him to discover his essence. 30 years of work taught him something most men never learn: that your inner world creates your outer world. That concept is foreign to most guys, confounding even. We've been taught that harder work, better strategy, and more effort create results. The idea that your conditional thinking is creating everything, your loneliness in marriage, your distance in parenting, your exhaustion at work, that's a mirror most men refuse to look into. But Trevor's built a career holding up that mirror through his organization, Fundamental Men's Groups, and adventure coaching experiences. He's creating space for the conversations men aren't having anywhere else, where vulnerability stops being weakness and becomes a path to actual strength. Because here's what's at stake, everyone. It's not just men hurting. It's women arriving at divorce as the only remaining solution. It's children being raised by their fathers who are physically present but emotionally absent. reactive, angry, scared, lonely, resentful, distant. We're passing generational trauma not through abuse, but through silence, through performance, through men who never learned to feel, never learned to connect, never learned that conditioning they received wasn't designed for the life they actually wanted. Trevor believes we have an opportunity to rewrite that narrative and rewire our brain, to turn the tide for a man at a time, to build community for guys who've been isolated inside their own success. The question we're exploring today, what does it take for a man to stop performing and start living? And we interrupt this cycle before another generation of boys learns that success means sacrificing that connection. Trevor Stevenson's about to show us why the everyday dude might be the most important market nobody's talking about. Welcome to the show, Trevor Stevenson.
Thank you, Tom. Such an honor to be here. I don't know what else we have to talk about. You kind of just said it all.
What was it like to sit back there and see your life story and your passion, what you do, flashing before you?
It's actually really inspiring. On one hand, it's a bit like there's an urgency within me and almost a sadness that this is such a reality, but then it's a real inspiration because everything you're describing is so accurate. Like it is that opportunity right now to shift this tide, to change that generational stigma that keeps men in that conditioned way of showing up.
Yeah. Incredible. Hey, you've got something pretty cool you're wearing around your neck. Tell us about that thing.
Well, it's a neat. So I just arrived in South Africa a couple of weeks ago, and I was going to bring a necklace, and because sometimes I have one on, and I always had one on when I was traveling, collected different ones that really meant something to me. And my friend that I'm here with, this was sitting on a dresser, and I said, I said, this just looks so great. And she said, I never wear it. Please have it. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll put it on. I'll wear it while I'm here. And then I was wearing it when I was talking to my wife and business partner, Dale. And I had my tank top from the adventure coaching experience trip that we did in February. And she was like, oh my gosh, that's your ACE logo. I was like, and the logo's here, and this was here. And I had not even clued into it, but it's the logo we designed is kind of, it's got the moon and our sort of North Star in it, but these waves crashing and stuff, that you can kind of see here. And so this is a shell actually, and you can see sort of the refined detail and stuff, but
that's very cool.
So it was all
I love that.
be.
Yeah, I love that. It's about neuroscience. The brain sees that. I embody it, think about it, and it reminds me of things I've experienced. My wife showed me when we first got married 30 years ago an image, and it's part of it reminds you of that, the yin and yang. I'm going to put something on the screen now just to have some fun, try and change it up here with how we're situated. So just hold on while I try to get the best shot. Let me just, whoops, that wasn't what I wanted. We'll come back to us again. Okay, we'll do that one here. Just to prove that you are actually in South Africa or in Africa. Hey, everyone, he just sent me on my cell phone from WhatsApp some pictures. So just tell us what I'm looking at there.
So that first picture, we rocked up at Bakuban Reserve Nature Park near Sun City, Pilanesberg, I think it's called, in the area.
Yeah.
In South Africa, and we came into our place, and there's a watering hole out front. So that picture was literally taken about 15 minutes ago at the watering hole.
What about this one here? What a beautiful thing.
Purple is one of my two high favorite colors. And I got here, and I didn't remember, like when we said the name, but that's a jacaranda tree that is in flower right now. And
really?
So just all over, you're driving around, just like it's green right now because there's been rain and such, but then just like boom, purple. It's just like, we don't get purple at home to that extent,
That's very cool. We have Dollarama stores. You have jacaranda trees. What a contrast.
Sweet lady. So the friend that I came over to be with and help her in her business, she runs these huge flower events, and we did a retreat, a conscious blossoming retreat. She does nature therapy and flower healing and things like that.
Yeah.
And she came over to Canada last fall in our beautiful fall colors in Canada, and we did this a retreat, a conscious blossoming retreat. And so when I came over, and she's got these big events that she's doing, and so this lady here, on Esther on the left is from Malawi, and Maria is from Zimbabwe, and Pereira is from South Africa, and it's just beautiful connection with these ladies. I've been working and running and driving around with them and stuff, so we're just having a laugh.
Well, I'm biased. I love people, but one of my favorite, I love gardening. I love animals. My favorite would be the elephant, right up there for animals. See, that's what you get on the Quiet Warrior Show. You never know what you're going to get. We've spent the first 7-8 minutes looking at pictures. They tell 1,000 words, much better than just talking. But just on that, we're here to tell stories. So are you ready to go into Plato's garden?
Oh, I love it. Let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to set it up. We'll edit this up, clean it up a little later. There we go. We're out in the middle of Africa. The crickets. And we're wondering what would it be like to go into Plato's garden and tell stories with Trevor. Well, here we are. So Trevor, we're going to set the scene, but before I do that, I'm going to put on the screen something visually everyone can see. This is to tell the audience that Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, founder of Platonic school of thought and the academy. Apparently, this was the first institution for higher learning in the Western world. And so we're going to be weaving your story. You won't know we're doing this, but through 3 areas. Macro, what was going on in the global world around Trevor since he was really born up until now that influenced your work. Mezzo, which is what was happening in your sector where you do your work. And 3, micro, my favorite. What was going on with the dude, the man, personal life, you. And see, what we're doing here is critical thinking. We don't do it very well as adults, but if we take all the information in these 3 areas and the audience meshes it together, they're going to have deeper insights about who you are and what your true story is. So let me set the stage and then we'll get talking. Trevor, your childhood started with anger, violence, and a lack of empathy. Take me back to the moment you first realized that conditioning wasn't going to work for the life you wanted.
Now, for clarification, you mean, so I lived those experiences, which we haven't talked about yet. And then I'm out in the world and there was a recognition that these things are holding me back. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. The moment when you went, the way I'm conditioned, it's not working.
We talked about, and you said in the intro about strong women influencing me. There was so to speak directly to this, it was a literal slap in the face. I had quite a strong-willed girlfriend who, had accompanied me out to Whistler when I was living up north of you there for a few years. And I remember this fight we were in, and she was trying to connect. She was a very soulful person, but she was like really powerful and direct.
Yeah.
And I don't remember like the exact content, but the context was her trying to get me to feel and to share what was going on for me and what was real and why I was showing up this way. And I forget what I was saying. And she just like, whack, smack it right in the face.
Wow.
And I was like, okay. And so I stepped back and I stepped away from that. And, obviously the anger and the frustration and the shock were all there. But it was also that, metaphorical slap in the face of like, okay, whatever is my modus operandi of the way I'm showing up is obviously creating harm or distance and disconnect between the people that I love most.
Wow, what a story. And I was asking Trevor before we came on the screen here how tall he is, 6'3". You're a pretty big guy. And I just imagine, and the first thing when you tell that story is my brain goes into, my goodness, did you resist that? And did you know she was right at that time, or did you have to process that?
Great question. Like I said, there was the frustration was me saying, you're not right. I don't deserve this.
Yeah.
And it's certainly in those days, and we're talking decades ago now, it certainly took longer to come to that realization that whatever is in that serious reaction from someone else, from someone that close to me.
Sure.
there's got to be value in it. So it took days or weeks, I know, of us like having to come back together, and me still be, we talked about it before and we'll talk about it more, but the neural wiring, right? It's not like that one snap in the face just rewired my brain, because I've got to that point decades of conditioning doing it a certain way.
Interesting.
And so it's these small actions, small conversations that start to shift the tide of neural wiring that has me think a little bit differently.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's funny. My brain goes on journeys, just totally all over the place. And when you said about the slap, I actually saw somewhere. They have this ultimate fighting or whatever sport, and the guy who created that, he's out of the U.S. somewhere, and it's became huge, right? I think they were starting something where two guys sit literally at a table, and one gets ready and literally slaps the guy's hard. Like, how crazy is this world? Talk about minimizing. But let's. So let me get into something else here. While we're still in Plato's, I'm going to put the screen back up. I got a piece of paper, so I've got a ton of notes on you, man. And I wrote this, which it's very interesting because it fits. Your journey began in a childhood marked by anger, violence, and lack of empathy. And the turning point came through what he calls strong women who corrected my path. Interesting. Just touch on as much as you can, like what in your childhood made you angry, violent, lack of empathy. Was it an influence? Was it treatment, maltreatment, or just anything that we can help what actually shaped you the way you were?
Yeah. And I wouldn't say I was, I personally didn't grow up to be angry and violent, and I'll parentheses or asterisks on that, because I think the anger was real, but it didn't come out as a physical thing. Yeah. But and most of the guys, like with so many that I work with, anger is their quickest emotion that arises when something isn't right, when needs aren't met.
I see.
And then we have a whole lot of maladaptive strategies for dealing with that.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that was really what I was experiencing. And I think I say this now with a lens of much deeper empathy for my experience growing up, for my father, who, grew up in the 30s in downtown Toronto, 3 brothers, immigrant parents, very poor, middle of the war. And so I came to realize what his upbringing must have been like.
I see.
I didn't, when I was 45, I started to recollect that kind of thing. But my experience was the youngest of 6 kids in 8 years.
Wow. And busy.
Yeah. My dad wanted a workforce for the farm, and so this 500-acre farm that we grew up in a small town, outside this small town. He was a full-time teacher. My mom worked full-time at the hospital, went back to work after her 6th child. And so this
incredible.
Yeah, this farm that we had to run, we had a couple of hundred head of cattle, and all the hay and everything. We had horses and pigs and sheep and different things at different times, but this was all kind of a afterthought of their work. And so it was constant work for us, and there was high expectation of getting it done. And I'm a kid and I want to play and all of this, and so when I'm trying to live out that kind of natural narrative.
Whoops, we seem to have Trevor. You're frozen there. Just Trevor's in another country, and he's on an internet feed here, everyone. So we're going to see if we can get him to sort that out. And what we're hearing here is he's talking about that backstory. So I'm just going to ramble for a couple minutes while we try to have him come back and unfreeze himself. Maybe that slap that he talked about kind of came back and froze him up. But the neural adaptations that happen when we're shaped in from our early years, they can have an impact, and we tell ourselves stories. And this is one of the things that Trevor's starting to talk about. And so we're going to just let the audience sit for a minute while we see if we can get him unfrozen there on the screen. He's just dropped off, so he's going to come back. But let me just riff for a minute on that it wasn't until later in my life that I discovered that my parents are from Fiji and roots to India, that I was born in England before I came here to Canada. But my ancestry, I just found out this year that my roots are indentured labor, just going to add Trevor back to the stage here. Okay, you're back again. We just had an elephant freeze you up there for a minute.
Oh, shoot. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So let's keep rolling. If that happens again, we'll do the same. Just have you come back. You're in a different part of the country, so we sometimes get that. I'm just going to back up and start riffing on what I was saying to the audience when you popped off there. That Trevor, it's interesting because we're building this picture of what your life was. And when you were talking about your dad's upbringing, and then you said something like you started understanding all of what his life was. I haven't told you this publicly, but I'm up in April this year, I found out that my great-grandfather came on a ship as an indentured laborer and endured slavery. And I didn't know that. My parents are born in Fiji, but my roots are to India. My father was an addicted alcoholic and very abusive and violent. So that was how I was treated. And so I developed these neural adaptations, but I always had these questions. Why is dad such a jerk sometimes? Why is life treating me this way? Why am I so misunderstood? And then when I realized his true story, that's when I discovered that, there's a reason. It was kind of healing. So let's move forward. I'm going to ask you something else here in Plato's. We're with Trevor Stevenson, everyone. So a decade of world travel to discover your essence. Take me to the moment you realized you weren't running away. You were running towards something, and talk about this world travel because it sounds interesting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm such an advocate of that. There's so many youth, I have a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old, now 2 boys.
Wow.
And the 17-year-old, in Quebec, they're done high school at grade 11. And there's just a generation of seemingly lost youth. And I say that, but it has been that way in my mind for decades.
Really?
You come out of high school and the societal norm is, well, off to post-secondary. It doesn't matter that you don't know what you want to do. Just go and get that degree and figure it out. But I think that both the need for that and the awareness by the youth about the efficacy of that is like diminishing that propensity to go off to university just for that piece of paper. I followed suit, just knowing that I didn't want to go. Went to university for maybe a couple of classes, spent about $10,000 partying.
Expensive classes.
And then I'm like, this is ridiculous. And that's when I moved out to Whistler and just started doing things that I really loved because I knew I was done with that institutional learning, and I knew how much I loved to learn and be present in different forms of learning.
Sure.
And so I did that, and I just started I got quite enthused and inspired by what can come from that travel. And we've spoken, about the meeting people and different cultures and different careers and aspects of people's lives that are there's a curiosity, especially as a young adult, as to like, what got you here and why do you love it? And so I started traveling, and it was actually when I came to Africa when I was 25. So I left university when I was 19, and I kind of just kept traveling. And then I spent 3 years in Africa, and I was really coming into my own then because I was traveling fully on my own. And I started guiding, which, a level of responsibility, and guiding overland trips through Southern Africa and whitewater canoeing. And so I'm now there are people coming in, and I'm connecting with very intentionally. And there's almost, it seems an escapism to an extent on their part of like, oh my gosh, I get away from my career for 2 weeks, and I'm digging in, and then I'm asking deeper questions, and I became, the Canadian campfire coach, sitting around late nights with people.
I love that. I love that campfire coach, that moniker. Yeah. I just want to connect the dots on a couple of things for the international folks who might not know Whistler. So I live in British Columbia. Whistler is a beautiful place. Not a couple hours from here. We take a Sea to Sky Highway. You were born where again? In Quebec?
In Renfrew, Ontario. So kind of middle eastern Ontario.
And what brought you to BC to be going up to Whistler? Did you live here for a period of time?
No, I mean, initially it was just, there was a buddy going out, and we had our little ski hills in Ontario. And
that's right.
And I really loved it. And we're going big mountain skiing. He was going out, we hopped in his car and drove across Canada. And it was just,
hey man, we're going to tell you that you're not so little anymore in Ontario. The Blue Jays, they're going to the World Series. So some might say, So let's digress a bit. We're connecting dots, but I love the part of you that's adventurous. And there's something about that. And I'm starting to realize that, was it McGill you went to, or which university did you go and play for a bit?
I was at Carleton. So yeah, I spent a lot of money down in the market. And
so everyone, are you starting to follow? Any of you out there said, I went to university, kind of got bored, wanted to party, but I believe that it's that inner self that's adventurous, that wants to grow and experience life. And, I had my oldest stepson, we couldn't keep him focused in school. And then when he left school, he became like 100% in post-secondary stuff, and realized from a educator, that some kids just can't sit and do the same thing over and over. Bill Gates dropped out of school. Albert Einstein dropped out of school, went and created something. Facebook guy, Zuckerberg, did the same. Not dumb people. They just had this inner passion and drive, like it sounds like you did.
Yeah.
Let's go on to we're still in the micro, which is about you, and then we'll flip into the mezzo, your sector where you're working your work. The concept that your inner world creates your outer world, Trevor, it's foreign to some people, or I'd say most men. What does a man's face look like when he actually gets this, understands it, not just intellectually, but in his body? Tell us what it means.
Do you want the emoji or
whatever you want?
We play the emoji game, so it's kind of like a.
Okay, I like that.
There's like there's almost a shock of like, is this possible? Can I connect and receive in this way? And the understanding that there's because nobody, you said it in the intro, but for men to self-ID that I'm struggling, having a hard time in my marriage, in my relationship with my staff, with my boss, whatever, to recognize that is something within me that can shift my whole outer world is like, there's such a relief and a release to that. It's like, oh, so now I don't have to change the whole world. I can change my experience just by changing the way I react to it.
Interesting. Yeah, we have that power, right, to choose. So how long unless somebody becomes aware of this, how long before that awareness becomes a different behavior? How does that happen?
That's a great question, but it's a real spectrum, right? Because it depends how many triggers and stimulus within a day that we choose to apply this corrective pattern, right? The neural wiring, because we have the opportunity, like trying to get onto this podcast or this live, and like the internet's not right, or just now, that when the internet kicks out, I'm like, it's like, am I going to freak out? Am I going to stress? Am I going to cry? What am I going to do? And it's like, am I going to choose to take that breath in that moment and realize life is happening? And how do I choose to be with what is? And so to answer your question, and it's why fundamental, like whether people come on the adventure coaching experience or I've just met them or whatever, fundamental is weekly for a reason. And we chat in the group and journal every day for a reason, because it keeps us connected to each other, but to ourselves in a way that we're remembering, I'm in a practice here. It's like if you're on a baseball team, if you're one of the Blue Jays, it's not like, oh yeah, I guess I'll practice today, maybe, it's like, no, it's every day you're putting in the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's like training for the Olympics. You got to build that mental muscle. I'm going to add this back to the screen. You triggered something in my notes here. I wrote his framework, the methodology, community, vulnerability, and adventure. Trevor's work through fundamental, and it's trademarked, I think, an adventure coaching experience is centered on three core elements: community over isolation, vulnerability, a pathway to strength, adventure as metaphor and teacher. So just why don't you take a minute and explain that to people, because they may not understand when you say fundamental. It's a company, it's these groups. Just help us understand more about what that all is.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. And so there's been a blessing in my life, and again, it's what we become, we attract. Yeah. And probably 14 years ago now, a group of guys. So I live in Chelsea, which is on the Quebec side, just outside Ottawa, and it's this beautiful we're right beside the big national park, the Gatineau Park. And there was a group of us who were all having kids at the same time, and we all got connected. and we would be there. We started having dinners together, and the guys would get together and kind of be lamenting as we do about our lives now. You know, oh God, we're not having sex as much, and our wife doesn't have time for us, and blah, blah, blah. And so we decided we needed a weekly boys' night, and so we started Wonderful Wednesdays.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and what I love about it, Tom, is that it was very intentional as well. Like we're all in different sectors and such, but we came together for like fitness and outdoor, you know, now it's a big thing, you know, the forest bathing and stuff. And we've just been doing it forever. We were always in the woods, whether it was mountain biking or cross country skiing or something. You know, we make up games, but we're always outdoors. We'll have a couple of drinks. We'll talk foolish, but there was always a real conversation about what's going on in our lives and that community of support. The guys were always there for each other. You know?
How many in a group?
Well, there was 5 of us, and like there was the core 5,
yeah.
and it stayed like that, which is a big. And we've seen each other through marriages or divorces, remarriages, business tanking. You know, just all the parenting stuff that we went through from newborns up till teens and empty nesting and all of these things. We were always there for each other on our Wednesdays, but then always.
Interesting.
And there was such a beautiful camaraderie, and so that authenticity or vulnerability as well was such a big part of it, and the adventure. So all of those things, community, authenticity, and vulnerability, and and the adventure. But I've always wanted that for more people. And I knew, you know, in my role of coaching, and, you know, we might be getting into the mezzo, but to bring that to more people, they can't, you know, everybody's not coming up to Chelsea, and our group was a little, you know, insular. We wanted to keep it as it was, but I wanted more access for more people. And I knew I wanted to bring this. And I am so proud of the name Fundamental, because like it's all in there. You know, the fun is in there, the men is in there, the mental is in there, the fundamental is in there.
I just want to honor that. So just interrupt for a sec. It's on the screen in your signature, but look at it, everyone. Fun. The word men stands out. It's a brilliant brand. Congratulations. I love it.
Thank you. And there's another one that's kind of personal. The only thing left out there in what I described was the DA.
Yeah.
And that's actually what my kids from babies called me. Duh. Hey, duh. Duh. And they still, like when they write me and stuff, duh.
Well, duh. That's pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Thankfully, they don't put the UH.
It's funny because, you know, again, my brain is very much jumps all over and is creative. So I see Ace and I think of Ace Ventura, and then I think of adventure and I think of humor, and it just all adds up. There's this fun element to your work. And I think I went through depression and things when I fell on my head, got my concussion, if you know that story, years ago. And I had to do some soul searching, especially with suicidal ideation and things. And they sent me to CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, where I learned what you were teaching us, the power you have to change the way your thoughts behave. You can't actually always change the thoughts because they come. But going back to something you said earlier about pausing before you react, that was a skill I was taught, to find the pause. You know, count 5 backwards, it disengages the brain, and then respond, don't react. When I respond to things, like your camera froze, I used to react, my anxiety, and then panic. Now I count to 5 and my brain like basically responds, and it always leads to a better outcome. So it's very cool. I'm going to throw something else out here. And we're still in Plato's, and we're in the mezzo now, which is sort of the sector of where you're doing your business work. I call this the bit of a background, the everyday dude, a deliberate market focus. So the question would be, you know, you've narrowed your focus to the everyday dude, a reflection of your own journey. Why him specifically, and a little bit of background that after, working with supporting thousands of people across various demographics, and correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, that's kind of the focus, the dude. Tell us about why that.
I think it's just because it's me. It's so relatable for me.
Yeah.
You know, it's you don't need to be I know, and there's people, you know, and in business we got to find our niche and all of these things, but I'm like, you could be a CEO, you could be, you know, working at the pub down the road.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter, because we're all going through this same life experience. I'm looking for the guys who have like are open-minded. And to me, there's an active part of like, and you know, I don't want to be exclusive either, but I just, there's something about it that is in my soul that I want guys that are going to be inspired to move both physically and mentally, you know.
Wow.
And not to say that
Yeah.
everybody is, but
Yeah.
it's yeah, there's something in that, like that is beautiful to see. And you talked about the generation, and I would say, you know, it's been generations, but like it's so easy to see when we come together that we've all been raised the same way, with a conditioned mindset of, you know, that we've got two feelings that we're allowed to show, you know, like joy and anger, and everything else is like push that shit down, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear the voice of my military commanding officer father talking now, who sadly I lost, but I love my dad. It's interesting, all this stuff about the ordinary or the dude. It's interesting in my own work as a CEO from industry, and then I started doing this and coaching too, that I call it in the cone of silence. Remember, Get Smart, the cone of silence. I say it this way, that some of the guys show up with blood on their shirts. In other words, they tell me about, my wife walked out of my life last night, or I went into a board meeting and I don't know if I want to be the CEO anymore. I feel beat up. I'm drinking too much. And I like what you said, because I was, when I first started doing public speaking, I applied for a TED Talk and I failed twice. And I tell the story to teach guys and gals. And they gave me this feedback. Man, it stung. They said, you know what? We don't care about your best-selling book. We don't care about your CEO title. We don't care about your homes. We want to know who you really are. And that's when the mask came off, the persona. And by the way, in my doctorate thesis I submitted, it's titled The Quiet Revelation, Unfolding Identity in a Complex World. But it took me a lifetime to learn what you're teaching so many men. I'll finish with this, that I was wearing this mask and I was an ordinary guy, but I felt like I couldn't. It was lonely at the top. I can't tell my boss. I can't show the weakness. My dad's voice is in my head. And I think you're right. Every man is a dude. We were all born innocent, golden children, and this crust builds up. So pretty amazing. Let me put this back to you. Most men that tell you they're lonely in marriage, distant in parenting. This comes from your comments. Unfulfilled in work, overwhelmed by it all, etc. How did we raise a generation that achieved everything but ended up isolated? And is this modern, or have men always suffered silently?
I'd say absolutely, we always suffered silently, but we were less vocal about it. Like, and that's in your intro, my ears perked up, you know, that we're raising a generation of, and like I would have just put an S on it, right? Because you talked about your dad and then his parents, right? Imagine their experience, right? And so that strength, that success that we talk about now, it was always there, but before, like, it was always been about putting food on the table, whether it was tilling the land or going to war or whatever, you know. The men were doing that sort of thing, and it was all that stoicism and like, be tough and don't show weakness and just get her done, you know. And so I think it's always been like that. What I'm realizing is the women are much more confident in sharing about their experience now, and so the dudes are kind of waking up and saying, oh wait, what's going on? Why is this happening? And I don't know how to deal with it. Right. She wants me to be showing up differently, and I don't know what that means. And so, like I was saying earlier about the slap in the face, like our instinct is to like say, well, it's not me, like I don't need to change, you know. And so we change jobs, we change wives, you know, we walk out of things, and we keep the mask on, and that, you know, that doesn't serve anyone.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I wrote about this again in my thesis. I remember writing that having to identify when the mask comes on, when it comes off, and when it's so deeply embedded in the face it can't come off. And one of the things I discovered is in particularly corporate North America, that some men go in there and they want to be seen and heard, but the rules of the corporation or the structure don't allow you to be weak. You got a board, you got a boss, you got to be tough. You got to lead your people. They can't see your weakness. etc. Very interesting. I want to ask you to just drill down a little bit more on, because I'm fascinated with this, and we want people to contact Trevor to get involved or somehow explore this fundamental stuff you're doing. So walk me through what actually happens in a fundamental group. If you can just paint a picture, not the marketing version, but what does it feel like to be there for the first time after years of wearing a mask?
It's so I do it in a few different ways. If locally, and I want to do it virtually now too. For in fundamental, there's people from here in South Africa. There's people in the UK, all across Canada, in the US, and things. And
Cool.
and so I love that there's this diversity. And fundamental is essentially a weekly call and daily check-ins, and then we do habit tracking for the things that we know are going to be healthy and productive habits for us. But the weekly call, Tom, we show up, and I always do a grounding exercise and arriving thing, which is, I think is called for in all of our meetings, right? Because we're so like, we finished that meeting. Okay, let's get to the next one. Okay, let's get down to business, versus like you said, let's all count backwards from 5. Let's arrive together. Let's look people in the eyes.
So you're kind of meeting them where they're at, getting them all on the same wavelength by grounding them. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's so important, and it just takes a minute, and then just a question. And again, this is the dude part. I think it's a big piece of what guys like hanging out with me. Those who do, and there's lots who don't. But within our intro question and conversations, there's either going to be something right there that we dive into and start talking, and it's really free flow. And I'll end up coaching 1 or 2 guys. And it's sort of a fishbowl thing. And I'm just talking them through exactly what their experience was, helping them hone in, take out all the packaging and the judgments and the shoulds for themselves and the guilt or blame that happens in it, and get them really, okay, what was the exact experience? And then, what did I really want or need in that moment? And then what would have gotten me there? Yeah. I did this on the call just in this past Monday, right? And a guy was talking about a situation that happened. He got all flared up and angry and things like that. And 90% of the time, the guy's reaction is anger. And this is for all of us. And the need in that moment is calm. The initial need. Yeah. Within. And so so what could you have done in that moment? And then we go to a strategy. Because people aren't going to say, well, geez, I needed a drink, or I needed to smoke something, or I needed to punch someone in the face. That's not what we're saying. It's like, no. What if you need calm? What can you do? And it's like, I can go outside. I can take those 5 deep breaths. I can do the spot 5 colors. I can go for a run. I can do 10 push-ups. Anything, that is a much healthier way to reach calm. And then we go back and say, okay, well, if you had done that, how might you have behaved differently in that situation? And it's just like, it's such a beautiful transition that they can see. And then, like I say, the real work is next time you get triggered, how do you get better at the pause? Right? How do you create distance between stimulus and reaction?
Yeah, that's fascinating. Have you had any training, or did you just self-learn about the brain and neuroscience?
Oh, we did. Yeah, I guess it was a lot of self-learning. We had a partner, so we were part of an international organization when Dale and I started.
Yeah, I think I'm a big, well, you can't see, but if I moved, I've got a replica. Let me see if I can put it on screen here.
I saw it. Yeah,
I call it Mr. Brain, and he goes with me. There he is when I speak. Yeah. But because I fell on my head and almost lost my life, I couldn't walk straight, speak properly. I had latency of thinking, all this stuff. And I learned about this neuroscience that you can rewire. And people don't always understand that, but they're neuronal pathways, and you can teach the brain by repetition to do things differently. What I didn't know is the rewiring, actually, the process the brain does, and you probably know this, but for the audience, doesn't happen when you're doing the drills, like the thinking, pause 5, pause 5. It happens in deep rest and sleep, almost like in the REM sleep, when the brain is doing its healing. And so we have a lot of men who binge watch TV, drink too much, and don't properly get enough sleep. But I'm fascinated by the weaving in of, I see in my notes here, you said rewiring the brain, creating pathways through repeated practice, different thoughts, behaviors. We're kind of hearing that from Trevor here, everyone.
And Tom, just to quickly, so there is the sleep, which does its thing, but reflection as well is huge. And that's why,
you do that. How do you do reflection? What's that?
Well, it was even what I just described in that conversation where we did it, and it was less than 5 minutes. This how we ended up with this coaching conversation on the call on Monday night, right? It was just so. What could you have done differently now from this place of calm? How do you see the opportunity? And first, there's a reflection on what was the amygdala hijack.
Yeah.
And that, steals the blood flow, the glucose from the prefrontal cortex. But and once I'm in a state of calm, then how could I have addressed that differently? So that type of reflection is one. And then we had talked earlier about the journaling that we do in the group every day as well. And that as well, to say, what am I grateful for today? What am I proud of? What was fun today? What am I excited about tomorrow? And what was challenging today?
Yeah. I love to see your journal. I live to read your journal.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I had somebody tell me once I coached somebody, they hated journaling, they wouldn't do it, and then they did it and they fell in love with it and took it everywhere. I have somebody I met actually that showed me they have, since they were so young, and they have a shelf with all these journals. Imagine what a treasure that would be to pass on to your, kids, maybe there's stuff in there. Let me throw this out back at you as we're still talking about you working with these men. There's a lot of buzzwords out there in HR land, and one of them is psychological safety. And let me tell you what I know, not tell you what you should know, so you can comment. Psychological safety, what I learned through the brain is where the brain creates oxytocin, which is almost like a love chemical. When you and I are together and I don't feel danger and I feel he's kind of like me in some way, I feel this safety. I can talk to you. I can share things. So how do you create safety when these guys have been rewarded for never showing weakness? How do you actually, if you're one-on-one with me and I'm afraid of you because I think you're going to open me up and that's too painful. How do you get me to see that you're kind of like me?
I usually go first.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier, you called it vulnerability, you call it authenticity as well, right? I think, you've done enough of all your coaching and all your research to recognize how that, the brain is, either in a away or a toward state, right? Am I in a threat state or am I moving toward? And to get into that toward state, that is, to me, that's the psychological safety when my brain isn't in a fear or a threat state.
Yeah.
And to do that, we need to be in connection with self before we can be in true connection with someone else. And so what I do when I meet men is I'm just talking about my own experience. And it's funny because then it's like, wait, have you, what's that song I'm thinking of? To Beat the Devil.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, have you been reading my mail? It's like, it's just so relatable and it's so easy to see. And I talk to women about it. I was talking to my cousins. We're in a different country, different continent here. And, they're relating to all the men around them and they're explaining, this thing just happened and this guy went off with this young girl. And I'm like, let me guess, young kids, he's busy trying to hold it all down, bringing all the money, she's off and wanting her own space and has, and he's starting to get fit and be more active out in the world because they're distant and they're like, yeah. How did you know? I'm like, it's just like, it's textbook. Right. And that's why you mentioned, and I see it all the time, it's kind of the 40s, when we start to really, depending on when you've had kids and stuff, but generally in our society, it's kind of around then.
Yeah. How do you vet the people who come into your group? Do you do any kind of background or just talk to them, meet them? Because sometimes group therapy, I've been in group and sometimes you never know what you're going to get, right?
Yeah. So absolutely. Like I speak with everyone first and to get a sense of their vibe.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I have more ex-military or current military personnel being directed toward me from their therapists and such. Yeah. And that's a deeper kettle of fish, right? And
maybe some PTSD and things like that weaved in there.
Big time. big time, you know, but for those guys to open up, and the group therapy is a huge opportunity for them. And it's just a person's readiness. And so I don't mind either if people come on the call and for a time just want to be a silent participant,
Yeah.
you know, and just listen in, because I know they're taking away. I know they're embedding it, and some people flow in and flow out.
Yeah. Yeah, man, you've got so much skill and experience. Everybody, Trevor Stevenson here. It's pretty amazing. The word ace, it just keeps staring at me, and now I know why I was thinking about this. And it's funny, the brain again is in my brain's connecting all these dots. You just said something about military, and then I said PTSD, and I saw the word ace. So have you ever heard of or done the ACE test? I'm gonna just
tell what it is. There's a little spark somewhere.
Yeah, so it's the Adult Childhood Experience Test. You can find it online. I'm assuming you may have come across it.
And it's not. It isn't acute childhood experience. Like, is that a different thing?
No, it's Adult Childhood Experience.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I think that the test is called. But the reason why I want to bring it up with you is I actually, many men may not know this, but because of what I experienced in my childhood with my dad, and it was, like I said, it was physical and mental maltreatment, because he was a drinker and a military guy. And I didn't realize it, but as a young person, some of those visions and memories get stored deep in the inner parts of our brain, but sometimes they don't get stored. And I guess the brain washes it and puts it away. And I was always having this recurring thing happening when I was sitting in boardrooms or in meetings or with another person. And if they raised their voice or did something with their body, I would start to literally melt in an emotional puddle. Well, through psychiatry, because of my brain injury recovery years ago, I was told to take the ACE test, and I almost aced it. I got 9 out of 10, and the higher your score. And it basically, they said, you have complex PTSD, and I was blown away, and I was resistant and embarrassed. And I said, what do you mean? They said, well, Tom, so growing up, I was called Hindu raghead to color my skin. So I was not seen and heard for who I was. And then my dad's maltreatment. And I lost a son in my first few years of marriage, preterm. So, that kind of trauma, and going through all this stuff. And what they told me is, when you have trauma at multiple points in your life, it gets so complex that you can find one of these hanging thoughts that just recurs, and it shows up. Like right now, you could do something with your face and it could show up, and I might actually get paralyzed. So, I just wanted to honor you for talking about the military, but I think in addition to that, every man who's had maltreatment, I think should explore with a therapist the deeper parts of themselves, because sometimes we can't control those thoughts, right? We need to get help.
Well, that's it, Tom. And I think, it's part of the freedom, and it's part of the stigma. There's so many guys who don't want to go there.
Yeah, it's hard.
And it, that thing about the rose, the rosebud, there came a point where it was easier it was less painful to bloom than it was to stay closed.
That's true. Yeah.
And we just, sadly, there's so many guys and humans in general that things have to get so bad before they'll come out. And I'm like, come on, why wouldn't, this is what I do. And if friends, and it's just like, yeah, my woman just walked out of me, and I'm like, no, she didn't. That was 10 years ago, and she just finally said it now, but
that's it though, right? Sometimes I'm talking to you, I might be talking to a guest like you on my show, and I'll say something that I haven't said for 20 years. It's because I haven't had permission to say it. And then here comes Trevor opening me up. That's pretty powerful. You're such a talented man. We're going to go into the last part of Plato's here. You having fun in Plato's?
Yeah, that's awesome. I love how you do.
Okay, we're going to go into macro, everyone, the global. So the global influences of your stuff. We're going to ask you a few questions here. So we've been raised to chase success by any means. At least I was. And I climbed the corporate ladder to the highest level. And it works until we age and question our purpose, impact, joy. I think it's civilizational. So what happens when an entire generation of men wake up at 45 and realize they built the wrong life? Is it a reckoning coming, or will most just push it down. I think we've said they push it down, but how do we get them to wake up and do something about it?
Yeah, there's the $1 million question. I was with a buddy last night sitting around the fire, and he's like, "So, Trevor, how do you change the world? What's your opinion?"
Wow.
And it's and it really is, like, to me, it's self-awareness and the courage to do differently, because at 45 we've got the kids and the house and the white picket fence and the mortgage and the BMW, and we just want to hold it all together. And the thought that if I change and if I go after, because we've come through that system as well that said do all these things and you will be happy, to realize we've been sold something that actually doesn't feel good.
There's
against that system it's scary, right? Because I don't know how to do it differently. Crazy.
And then I think of, you said military, so brought back, like, so many kids grow up and they don't have fathers because they don't come back from the war. And in something called the circle of security, which I studied in my doctorate, that, children want nurturing and they need their parents, right? I just want to put something on screen here. You've got a fan linked. We're all over the social media now live, but LinkedIn, there's a fellow there, Apostle Peter Michael, saying greetings. You might know who that is. I don't know. I don't know if you know who that is, but thank you, Peter Michael, for chiming in there. Let's go back into Plato's. You talk about the tide of men hurting, women choosing divorce, youth raised by reactive, distant fathers. So how do you interrupt that cycle at a scale with men? Is it as simple as just working one by one with men, and hopefully the generation, they will become better fathers, or maybe they'll have children and they'll break that chain? I don't know.
Yeah. And what I'm thankful for, I think that there are so many, and I don't know how many you've talked to, but I think there are so many men who have gone through their own journey and chosen to do it differently, and they are now connecting, as I am, with more men who want to support them on their journey. So I think there's this sort of global rising, which is really important, and there's those who do it through cold plunges and screaming and running naked in the forest, and there's those who are doing it through just mindfulness and meditation and things like this, and breathing, and there's me doing it this way, through adventure and play and authenticity and connection. And I think that's it. Like, I don't know that if it's ever going to be, like, I don't think that can happen, that there's going to be everybody wakes up at one time and says, whoa, I can shift this. Let's go.
Interesting. What are some of the fun things you do with people in your, I won't use the word retreat, but you said about running naked through the forest, and I was going like, okay, what are some of the things you've done that are really fun and engaging?
Yeah, so I'm so proud to have created this as well. And it's really, as we've kind of learned here about my journey, my early life was adventure travel and guiding and things like that. And I have such I just come alive, Tom. And someone asked me that the other day about what makes me come alive, and it's really like to be out here and connecting with people and just in flow. I'm just like, the universe just shows up with me. And then the other, 21 years plus of coaching and leadership development and things like that, to have combined that in the adventure coaching experiences. So what it currently, the current version of this is a 10-day, we're going to Nicaragua in February again. And we start every morning early with yoga, and there's guys who have never done yoga before. They're like, so tight, but they're like, okay, 6:30, let's go. Come on, let's get at it. And then the guys even started like journaling on their own right afterwards. We took the space, we took the time, a short meditation after the yoga. We have our breakfast, and then the mornings are for adventure and play and fun. And we're riding motorbikes or quad bikes. We're climbing volcanoes. We're surfing.
Wow.
We're going on a little boat cruise to check out the animals, or just something fun and fantastic that becomes this massive boundary push beyond our comfort limits, but also like a deep connection time, because then you're walking with different guys and hearing their story at different times. And then we come back and more great food, and then we're sitting around and loosely moving through a curriculum that I have for this experience, sort of this awakening for men.
I
The
see.
self-awareness, the emotional intelligence, the communication skills. And we're just having conversations like our wonderful Wednesdays with the guys, just what's going on. And it's so relatable for people. And then I have those coaching opportunities within that to move them through. And then it's practice. And then, we have our evenings of fun, and we're jamming, playing music together, like clinking on, whatever, making noise and having fun, and
That's
being
so.
in different cultures. And,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I'm excited about all that activity stuff, because growing up in the corporate sector, where I was in lots of retreats and things as an executive, they try to take you out and do things like zip lining and this and that. But the things you're doing are next level, like going to the country you just mentioned. Man, everybody, you got to connect with Trevor. Let me ask you, because I like the operation side of business, because my brain thinks, how do you put all that together? So just in 30 seconds, do you, like when you plan a retreat like that, you have a team that organizing it to use like travel agents and resources, or is this something you've sort of just got like turnkey? You guys can put it together pretty quick.
Great question. So there's two things I'm good at organizing in my life, Tom, and it's parties and travel.
Okay, so you're it. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and it's like when I travel myself, I buy a one-way ticket, and like I say, then I'm in flow and it unfolds. For this though, I had all the details planned out. We stay in 3 different locations, a small colonial town, and out on a volcanic island, and then out on the Pacific coast. And
That's
so, yeah, all the
amazing.
Airbnbs, all the activities, all the guides, all the transportation, all the chef and stuff to travel with us. I organize it all myself, but it is pretty labor intensive, but it's beautiful in the end.
But if you watch his bag, you see the inflection and the smile on your face, the energy. Dude, you're the dude who, you love that stuff. I can see that. I think that's awesome, because if I show up and you bring that energy, I want to be around you. So that's really cool. As we're moving closer to the wrap up here, I want to ask you a question. This is a new segment we started 6 months ago. I think it's going okay, and it's called the Unwritten Chapter. So Trevor, if you could write one chapter that doesn't exist yet in men's work, something that you're thinking about for the future in a book, maybe, the thing you lie awake thinking about and haven't built or created, what would that chapter be about, even if it's a single word?
If I was going to go with a single word, I think it's courage, Tom. It's
Wow.
having that courage, because we all there's a knowing, as we talked about earlier, that things aren't right. They don't feel good. I don't like the impact that I'm having on those closest to me.
Yeah.
And it's the courage to just say, brother, can you help me?
Yeah.
Whether that's to me or to you or to your neighbor.
I love
It's
it.
that courage to show up and do something. Just apply in yourself into something that is going to be your where you get to share your truth, come what may. And it's when we do that it's like there's such a release and a relief for us, because then it allows others to do the same. All the other guys are there like, yep, me too. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone.
I think that courage word, wow. So I'm going to hold you accountable to, at some point, maybe we'll see a book or some blog or something that you write on that. There's so many different definitions of it. And I'm thinking back to all the adventures you do with people. Man, those outdoor experiences are one way to get people to experience their courage, particularly, when there's fear involved. So I love it. Let's go now to the last segment, which is something we just started literally a month ago. It's called the Warrior's Torch, and you get to actually be part of this for our next guest. But what we do is we have the last guest give us a question to ask you, and then we're going to ask you offline to give us a question to ask the next guest. And so this is what the last guest, and they don't know who you are, and it tries to be a general question. So this is what they want you to answer. If you could just undo one thing from your past, what would it be and why? This is from Steve Larson, our last guest.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. It would really, I'm going to tie it to my previous statement. It would be to have had that courage 2 decades earlier.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Admit that I was like, I'm aware of the impact that I'm having, and I don't like it, and I'm sorry, I don't know how to fix it. Who can help me? And like to take those like I get a nervousness even now thinking about me saying it then, to come out in that way. And I think that would be my wish, that I was able to do that, because I would have been more successful in my outer world, but I would have been more
love that.
calm and connected and peaceful and kind to myself and others in my inner world,
Wow. Teaching moment on the show, everyone. Come back and just listen to that last segment, that answer. There's so much in that. I just want to see if I can grab something off the back here. Yeah, I have a lot of books stacked up, and I'll show you on the camera quickly. In the back on the right there, these are all books that I've read that guests have written and sent me over. And when I have limitations with my vision after my concussion, so I actually have not as easy time reading, but I use PDF readers too. This is the fellow who asked you the question, Steve Larson. And Steve had 6 open hearts. He had 6 open heart surgeries. And his first surgery was when he was very, very young. And he talked about the learnings from, basically, he's on medications, and basically he's a ticking time bomb, but he talks about the discovery of his own courage. And so that's why I think his question was so insightful. Let's go now to honoring you, and then we'll let you have the last word. So did you know you were getting an award today?
No. Oh, well, actually, yeah. I have read enough and seen enough of your stuff to know that what comes next.
Oh, that's Trevor's surprise look. What is that? Okay, I'm going to put some on the screen here in order to do this. So have you heard of challenge coins?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from the audience point of view, it comes with a little descriptive card. These were created in World War I. Practice of carrying a coin, designated specifically for a unit, was popular with the Army Special Forces. If you didn't carry your coin, you were challenged. You would buy a drink at the officers' club, and that's still going on today. But it was community. And all over the world, these are collected now. When I created the show, I wanted something for the 1% of people in the world that find their courage from adversity and turn it into something that they serve others. And I vet hard. I ask a lot of questions. A lot of people don't always make it on the show. So the front of the coin is hand-painted, crafted. There's the Quiet Warrior Show image. The back is, I'm biased, but this is the narrative, the Quiet Hero's Journey narrative about how we go seeking and use our purpose. This is so intricate, man, when you get it. I hope you like it, but it's pretty cool. Huh? So congratulations and welcome to the Quiet Warrior community. We'll get that out to you.
I'm going to put it, Tom, up beside my Guinness World Record.
Yes. What's your Guinness World Record?
The tallest Diefenbachia in the world.
Yeah?
It's this African plant. It's quite a...
You're being serious? Wow.
Getting a Guinness World Record is almost as hard as getting on your show. But
wow.
It's worth the effort.
And there, see that? Trevor's always bringing surprises. We did not know that. And now, so what you're going to do is, is that still around, that plant, or you have a picture of it somewhere?
Yeah.
Send me that, and send me that. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. But let's wrap up with the last word from you. Tell us where we can get a hold of you and anything you want to leave the audience with from today.
Well, thank you. Logistics first, Trevor B. Stevenson, B for Bryce, and in LinkedIn, Fun Road to Freedom is my IG handle, and cool. Our website, what'll take you there is trevorstevenson.com. Is kind of the easiest one to remember.
Okay. Yeah.
I think those are the main things. We have that trip coming up in February, limited spots. There's about 4 spots left for it. And the last word, Tom, is really thank you. Thank you for all you're doing, for your courage to have overcome everything that you experienced in your youth, much more than most, and to have turned that into a gift for others, through your ongoing work, and for giving me the opportunity to participate in this with you.
Wow, I'm humbled, and I received that praise very, very sincerely, so thank you. And I see the dashboard in the studio, the audience can't. This is one of the rare shows where we have double digits of people watching us live, which for a lean back audience where people just, they're doing stuff and they go, oh, let's see what's going on there. That's remarkable. Says that you have a lot of interest in followers. And so keep doing the work you're doing. So everybody live with that true passion, like you hear from Trevor here. Find the true purpose that's yours and live the life, but live the life you deserve and desire. And we'll see you all on the Quiet Warrior show again. Before we go, I got this just come in. This was amazing. Your questions and flow, wonderful. Trevor, your message. Oh, that's from Dale. Okay, that's cool. Who's she? Tell everybody. She's a wonderful person because she praised me, so I like her.
Yeah, there's my coach. And,
that's awesome.
And wife and business partner Dale.
Dale, I love you, and thanks for that. I love her more than you because she praised me like that. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, me too. Well, that's usually how it goes. People meet me and they love me. Oh, what a great guy! And then they meet Dale, and you're like, oh yeah, Trevor's okay, But Dale,
that's fantastic. Well, so thanks again, and we'll be connected for life, man. And we'll see everybody on the Quiet Warrior show again.
In person.
Yeah, we will for sure. I'll be on one of your trips maybe soon. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week on the Quiet Warrior Show. Subscribe to YouTube so you can see them all.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca.
All right, stand by. We're going to take it offline. We still, another comment just came in. The comments keep coming, man. Look at that one. I'm keeping this on so we can have it etched in the show, but there's somebody. I don't know who they are, but there's another one. So you have these people who are big, loving the
beautiful people in my life.
Let me just take us offline. So we are off